Evening, everyone. Welcome to Wigan Fan TV. Castleford, or Wigan versus Castleford preview this week. Just the two of us. A familiar face who joined us a month ago or so for the preview that basically we shouldn't have bothered doing it because the game got called off. We were considering just pressing play on that one and seeing if anybody noticed. But Rob, welcome back to the show. Have you been keeping well?
Yes, I have. Thank you very much. Thanks for having me on again.
Not a problem. We've got some great feedback from the last time that you were on. It's good to get obviously an opinions fan and particularly Castleford at this moment in time. Since we last spoke to you, you've only lost one game, which was the Warrington game. Since we spoke last, how have you sort of viewed Castleford's performances, and are they getting back to the level of performance that you saw last year from them, and what you expect from them?
Well, I wouldn't say they're getting back to certainly the beginning of last year. They're not as good as they were at the beginning of last year, but the last couple of weeks, albeit against Catalans and Huddersfield, we have played really well. And last week we finally put in an 80-minute performance. We've really struggled in the second half, but to be fair, when we have struggled, the game's been won. There's only really the Leeds game where they almost come back and snatched it, but fortunately we got that drop goal just on the stroke of half time, which won it. But yeah, since Truman's gone to full back, that seems to be that problem solved. He's dropped a couple, but he looks very assured. That's allowed Roberts to go back into the halves, and we've got the same half-back partnership as last year. It is a little bit worrying. Jamie Ellis still doesn't look fit. So if Gale or Roberts gets an injury, then we may or may not have a problem. But no, they're certainly looking a lot better than I'm a lot more confident than I was when we were due to play you last time. I think we're getting somewhere close.
I mean, was obviously you wouldn't have been to the pitch on that day. Was the pitch actually as bad as what it was made out to be? I mean, I saw it against Warrington, and that Warrington game shouldn't have gone ahead, should it?
No, definitely. That Warrington game definitely shouldn't have gone ahead. I put some video on the Instagram on the Super League Pod Instagram, and literally 10 minutes before the match, they were still sort of brushing it off, and in the corner where the drain is, it was just full. I'm not so sure whether the Wigan game could have gone ahead had it not been for Cass's suspensions and injuries and what's not coming in yet. I don't know whether there were a little bit of gamesmanship there, but the Warrington game only went ahead because we already had two postponements, in my opinion, and it was a bit of a lottery. But to be fair to Warrington, they did play well that day. They played the conditions better. But ideally, that game wouldn't have gone. The pitch was... because it just carried on raining. It rained all the way through.
Yeah, I mean, I live up in the northeast, and I was in Wigan when we were supposed to play with the intention of driving up to Cass and then driving back up to Durham afterwards. So I ended up just driving basically, obviously past Leeds and past the turn off of Castleford. And as I was driving, I thought, there's something behind this. They can't be calling it off. But I think perhaps one of the big things is obviously because of your ground being stands and this sort of I think they were playing the danger to fans card as well as the actual pitch, and that game now obviously has been rearranged for the international weekend, which should be interesting with presumably Gale missing and Wigan missing Williams, so and possibly a couple of others from there, so that might be interesting. When I spoke to you last time, we spoke about Truman and we spoke about Roberts, and that was about the time where Roberts was getting perhaps a little bit criticised for his performances at fullback. And you just mentioned you've got back to that Gale Roberts partnership now. How big an influence has that been over the past few weeks, getting back to that settled partnership, do you think?
Massive. It's been massive. I don't think Roberts played bad at fullback. I just don't think he's fit enough to play fullback for Cass. The way that Hardacre last season and Dawn before that, and then even Truman this season, the fitness they've got to join the line in attack, we were just missing something. He didn't particularly drop a lot of ball. He didn't miss many tackles. It was more in attack where he just wasn't there. Now Truman's slotted in. He's a lot better in attack, and also he's been pretty solid in defence. Like I say, he made a couple of errors against Catalan. It didn't really matter because we could have still be playing now and they wouldn't have scored. But they are that bad. But he's been very assured. He got a big hit the week before against Huddersfield, and he just got up and dusted himself off, and he's playing a lot. He looks like he's a lot older than 19 years old. Roberts is just an outstanding player in the halves. And Jamie Ellis, I suppose, is a good backup, but for me, he doesn't look fit. So, assuming they're both fit and playing this week, I think we're going to do quite well.
So since we spoke last, I guess the form of both sides has been almost identical. Wigan lost obviously on Good Friday, but have carried on winning since then. We had the comeback win 2 weeks ago against Catalans, who, like you say, they had a fantastic start against us, but Wigan sort of blew them away in that second half. And then last week we had probably one of the worst, most boring games I've been to for 70 minutes, and then probably one of the best 10 minutes you could experience as an away fan at Headingley. Particularly, I think the last time I saw Wigan win there was about 2006. So it's been a long time between drinks in terms of me actually seeing Wigan win at Headingley.
I can't remember the last time we lost at Headingley.
And you've got to bring that up in a second about how many times you've beaten us as well recently. I assume you saw. You've seen Wigan, I guess, over the past few weeks, probably the Saints game and perhaps bits of the Leeds game. Is there anything from a Cass fan's point of view that you're sort of dreading about facing Wigan? Where do you think this, the big collisions are going to be on Friday night?
I mean, to be fair, you've got quality throughout the squad, haven't you? You are, player for player, you are a very, very good side, and the fact that you've got Morgan Escaré that I would think would walk into pretty much every squad, and he's quite often the unnamed. He's the player that drops out just to show what sort of depth you've got. Up front, I think it'll be quite. I think Cass might just have the edge up front because now we've got Watts, and Liam Watts has slotted in like he's never been away from Cass. Last week, I think he played the full.
That news when we spoke last time was just almost either just happened or it was just about to happen to Liam Watts.
I think we just signed him, but since he seems to be keeping his temper under control. There's a lot of players trying to wind him up. He always gets his face rubbed in the mud, and there's been a couple of times where he's jumped up and then smiled or walked away. But going forward, he's absolutely outstanding, and his ball handling for a forward. So now we've got Watts and Millington, who you can pretty much have a ball playing forward on for 80 minutes. In terms of your threats, I mean, obviously you've got an outstanding back line as well. This year you've changed your style of play as far as I can see, and you're giving the ball a little bit more air. You're getting out to the wings. I mean, that was an outstanding drop goal by Sam Tompkins, but when I watched it back, I was thinking, oh, what's he doing out? What's he doing out there on the fifth tackle with a minute to go? Yeah. It looked like a little bit of poor game management for me. But if you watch they were still going for it, weren't they? So I think Williams is a very good player and is playing very well. From my point of view, and for non-Wigan fans, it's difficult to tell who you've got playing where. So you've got Powell, he's got the number 7 shirt, hasn't he? Is he playing scrum half, or is he swapping with Tompkins? Or
well, I think that's the thing. When, we were having this discussion when we were supposed to play at Cass, we had a rigid flexibility, if that makes sense. We had a set agenda of we had Escaré on the bench, and at a certain point we would bring Escaré on, Tompkins would move to 7, Powell would move to 9, and Luluai would be spelled. But we've had Tompkins was ill on Good Friday. We've had a couple of illnesses, and Powell, I think, has been pretty much doing 80 minutes at 7. And Luluai has been doing 80 minutes at 9 over the past couple of games, and Luluai's come back from playing 7 last year, doing 80 minutes, so doing 80 minutes at 9. And probably, I think, when you see we're going to attack down the wings, they are sharing that responsibility perhaps a little bit more. You get people jumping into dummy half and certainly taking that workload off Luluai. I think the interesting thing from a Wigan point of view this week is, I think when probably made a decision that not many people would have predicted last week, putting Sargison on the bench and starting Bateman at centre for his defensive duties, then moving Bateman to 13, bringing Sargison on. This week he's got that a really tough decision. Is who does he drop? Ben Flower comes back into the squad after missing out last week from a concussion test. And Morgan Escaré played for the reserves on Saturday against Wakefield, and he looked like the only professional player playing against an amateur side. He was that good. I mean, the youngsters from Wakefield just couldn't get anywhere near him. It was absolutely incredible. And I think that was the exact game that Morgan Escaré needed to give him that bit of confidence that I think he's been lacking ever since he came back from injury. And I think I would certainly think Escaré will come back into the side on Friday. But like you said, we don't know where players are playing. And I had this discussion, I think, with Matt on Friday, and who I went to the game with, is, are there any positions in rugby league anymore? You know, you're a middle or an edge and a playmaker. I think they're probably the three positions, aren't they now? So, you know, they move around quite a bit. On the CAS 19, you've named the same 19-man squad from last week. Ellis and Gadwin Springham missed out last week. Do you think that you're going to go for the same 17 with Ellis and Springham missing out?
Yeah, I was expecting Junior Morse to come back in because I think he failed a concussion test after the Huddersfield game, but he's not in the squad, so I would be surprised if it's not the same 17. In the last few weeks, he's dropped McMeekin down to the bench, but he's played very well when he's come on. But he's still got the odd error in him. And then we've got Milner, who's an excellent player, but he seems to have turned into a little bit of a penalty machine recently, and that's one thing that Powell doesn't like. So Springer, for example, if he comes on and gives a penalty away, I'll quite often get pulled off and not come back on. So I'm surprised that after the Huddersfield game, where he did give a few penalties away, he wasn't given a rest. And then this week he came straight on and literally gave a penalty away. And it's just messing around at the ruck, and you know, fans moan about it. But the fact is, if your hands aren't in and you don't roll away, then you're giving the referee the opportunity to give a penalty. And especially, in my view, I think referees like to even it up a little bit. It's quite often when you look in the League Express, you'll see either an equal penalty count or a fairly equal penalty count. And the last 2 weeks, we've had a lot of penalties in the first half. And then I think Wigan benefited from it this week as well. Leeds got a lot of penalties in the first half, and then Wigan got a lot in the second half. I'm not saying they're not penalties. I'm just saying, you know.
Yeah, no, I think there is a tendency for that, isn't there? You know, everyone's very quick to criticise referees, but if they can even it up at some point, you can kind of see why they perhaps do that. One person that seems to be standing out a little bit for you is Paul McShane.
Yeah, he's been.
I think he would. Yeah. I mean, Milner and McShane, have they been sort of interchanging, and or has McShane been doing the full 80?
No, McShane's been pretty much playing the full 80. He has done for all of this season and most of the last season as well. And then Milner comes on either in the second row or at loose forward. McShane, one thing he has added to his game this year is kicking. I think he's kicked a 40-20. He's got a few try assists from kicking and kicking in open play. Although towards the end of the Catalan game, we did have Matt Cook who put in an excellent attacking kicking. So sometimes it does break down, even for Cassos who are quite organised. But yeah, Paul McShane is an excellent player. He's deceptively quick. Doesn't look like he should be. His skill gives me a little bit of an heart attack because he picks it up one-handed every time. But he doesn't seem to drop it very often. But no, he has been excellent. The only player we're really missing at the moment, apart from Junior Moores, is obviously Greg Eden, who's he came back against Huddersfield. He scored an excellent try and did his hamstring while he was calling it. But even James Clare has come in and played very well. And between Clare, Minikin, and Truman, we've pretty much got the high kicks covered as well. That's one thing that Clare probably is better than Eden at. So I think it's going to be two good sides, isn't it?
Yeah, it should be a really good battle all the way across. I think, like you said, the forwards for Cass with Liam Watts in there now perhaps makes that tastier, if you like. Ben Flower, I assume, will come back in. Navarrete might miss out as a consequence, and you've got sort of Tony Clubb is probably that person that might be challenged with, like you say, trying to rough Liam Watts up and test that temperament of Liam Watts somewhat, because Tony Clubb certainly seems to be our enforcer when it comes to that. Just a couple of notes on Wigan this week. We had our first Women's Super League game on Sunday. We played the beaten grand finalist Featherstone, and I think it was 54-0 we beat them. It was incredible. It just, I was watching it on Wigan TV, and Walsh, the Wigan captain, Gemma Walsh, I'm sure it's Gemma Walsh, was incredible. England international playing at standoff, and she just absolutely controlled the game. And Wigan's fullback was sensational as well. And I think that's whet the appetite for a lot more fans to go to. I think the next game that they play at home is at Orrell rather than Robin Park. If anybody's commented on this, by the way, not to bore people with details, but basically we can blame Donald Trump for something on Wigan Fan TV, which is probably something that I never thought I would say. Because of the Cambridge Analytica scandal that's going on, Facebook have changed all their APIs. So if you're using an external software like I am now, the comments don't necessarily come through unless you're using them on the actual page. So if you're watching in a group and you want to comment on this, you actually have to go to our page, and that's not just a way to get more people on the Facebook page, but it's if you search Wigan Fan TV, and you can add your comments there. But yeah, Donald Trump's to blame for only seeing a couple of comments at this moment in time. And John says, are discussions on Sam Tompkins still banned? I don't know really. I think I've got over it. He's going, and you know, we wish him the best of luck. And as and when that gets announced, we'll talk about it a little bit more.
I'll weigh in on that a little bit. If he goes and you replace him with that, you can get a all-round player in can keep his nose clean, if you excuse the pun.
Literally, yeah. I mean, I think that's one of the things, isn't it? We're probably getting Zach, depending on the UCAD hearing, which nobody knows. Probably Zach himself doesn't even know the outcome of that. And we've got Morgan Escaray. You know, we've got a fantastic fullback, like you said, who will get into most Super League sides. We've got Craig Mullen, a youngster who has only had an opportunity when we were down in Australia and played at centre against Souths. And he probably deserves this opportunity at some point as well. Two other tidbits for sort of Wigan fans that have happened this week. Liam Marshall signed a new deal, a 4-year deal, which is great news. I've given him a hard time for his defence over the past few months, but he's certainly improving on that. It's a strange one, I think, because he only signed a new deal last year. But great news for him. He signed a new deal last year at the same time as Tom Davis, so it'll be interesting to see if later this week Tom Davis news of a new contract breaks as well. And then today, former Castleford player Willie Isa signed a new 3-year deal, which is a 3-year deal, as Emma mentions there, that starts at the end of the season. So it's a 3.5-year deal for Willie Isa now, which is great news for him. Emma says on there, it seems to be some propaganda from the club before the Tompkins news breaks. Yeah, possibly. You know, that is going to break. I would have thought at some point, whenever the club and the players are ready to do that. One thing that I've got on the schedule to talk to you about, Rob, is the league position. You know, I'll put on here, Castleford, are they in a false league position? If we bring the league up onto the screen, you're almost, if you win your games in hand, you're pretty much top of the league. But one of those games in hand is obviously ourselves at your place. It makes for an interesting analysis of the league table, because we've got Warrington who've played more games than anybody else in the top 4, yourselves who've played 2 less games than most. How do you read that in a minute? Do you see it being 5 teams competing for the top 4 at the minute?
Well, no, I think Hull FC will come back into it at some stage. It could be 5. I would expect Warrington to drop out, even though they did beat Cass.
Yeah, I would.
It was a sort of a bit of a lottery. I do think we're in a false position, because obviously I think we should be top. But we've had some scratchy wins, haven't we? We won by a point at Leeds. We probably did deserve it over the 80, because we absolutely blew them off the field in the first 25 minutes. Wakefield again was a bit of a lottery, just because of I've never been as wet or as cold as I was at Wakefield. So God knows what the players were like. And we really struggled to beat Widnes at home as well, to be fair. I think that was my point. The Cass game now on the weekend, the international weekend, becomes a really, really important game. I'm assuming you've got Saints at Magic, have you?
No, we've got Warrington. Saints have got... Saints have been given a bye. They've got Widnes.
Oh, really?
How that happened, I'm not going to.
But I can understand that because they had Hull FC last year, didn't they? When Rovers dropped out. So we've got Leeds at Magic, which it's not an easy game, but I expect us to win. I would also expect you to beat Warrington. So it comes down to, well, it could come down to how we perform against each other in the league. And that game on the Friday, Will Meakin isn't that much of a massive miss for us because we've got forwards. I wouldn't say we've got forwards to spare, but we're certainly stronger. Luke Gale, we really do struggle without him. Against Huddersfield, Jamie Ellis played okay, certainly in the first half, but he sort of disappeared in the second. And then when Gale came back this week, you could really tell the difference just in organisation. It can go both ways. When Gale's playing, as long as Roberts is in there with him. So I think one of us game's end is Hull KR away, so I'd expect us to win that. And as points difference we've only just gone into positive points difference this week. It's the first time we've been positive all season since we got hammered at St Helens. One thing I will say is
strange when you compare your form last year. You contrast that with Wigan. We were the first team this year, and I think so far the only team to reach 50 tries. I think I saw some stat on the Super League Twitter page where we're averaging 5 tries a game. We've almost become the entertainers, and you're sort of grounding these victories out. One stat that I was interested to see today as well is Luke Gale. He's got 7 on his back, and Williams has got 6 on the back, but they're in direct competition for an England place, aren't they? Really, because if he doesn't play a fullback, he's nailed on. And I think it's interesting what you said about the organisation of Gale. Perhaps that's the thing that keeps him in this. Might keep him in the side over Williams when it comes to that test, or certainly at the end of the year. You look at the stats. I think George Williams is on 11 assists, which is the joint highest with Ben Barber this season, with Richie Myler, this season. But a lot of Wigan fans would say that George Williams hasn't had a good year yet. A lot of people a bit disappointed with him. But then you look at the stats, and he's, I'd be interested to see. Maybe Mark being the stat man, we maybe need to get in touch with Mark and ask him to have a look at this. But I'd be interested to see how many of those assists for Williams are against what you would call your lesser opposition, and how many of Gale's got 6 assists. And you think of Gale's impact perhaps in that Leeds game, the big games. Gale does. We won't mention the grand final, but he doesn't tend to go missing in those big games. Certainly in the league season. So that's an interesting battle, I think, certainly for the England spot. Sorry for mentioning the grand final. I'll hand back over to you, and you can tell us the last time we beat you if you want.
Well, it's that long ago, I can't remember. He got 2 assists we got credited with 2 assists on Sunday, but I thought he got 3. I thought the first 3 tries come from Gale kicks. He's when I talk about organised. So if you look at Luke Gale, he's always whinging. Which I think
which is good halfback, isn't it? Yeah, that's what halfback.
He's always, and I don't see Williams doing that. I don't see him talking on the pitch as much. Now he might do, because obviously I don't watch as much. If I do watch Wigan, they're on telly, and you don't necessarily see what's happening in back play.
I think that would be a criticism from a lot of Wigan fans. Though is that communication element from Williams? Definitely, I think you're spot on.
But against Leeds, when you look at that, that's a fantastic drop goal by. I think that drop goal by Tompkins was better than Sneeds from his own half, just for the angle of it. But the fact is, you shouldn't have been there on the 5th tackle in the last minute when it's a tied game. The ball should not have been out there, and I think if that had been Cass or possibly a lot of the other teams, you'd have been driven up the middle, and it'd have been an easier drop goal. But I mean, all's well that ends well. So in terms of individual skill, they are both excellent players, aren't they? But you are right, Gale has gone missing in a couple of big games. I don't think he had a particularly good World Cup.
No, I don't think he did.
I think he looked scared. And when he's playing for Cass in a bog standard game, even against Leeds, which is a big game for us, he doesn't bottle it. He can do a kick. Against Catalans, those kicks that come off, if the first defender had cut them out, we'd have all been moaning saying they were poor kicks. But when you're playing as well as we were that game, and as well as we did last season, you can do that. You can take a chance. in the grand final and the semi-final for that matter, and the England games, he did look a bit scared. Hopefully, he'll get us where we need to be, which is, as we found out last year, is top 4, preferably top 2.
Top 4, that's all you need. Top 4, yeah, top 2, get a home game and sort of take it from there, really. You don't want to peak too early. We'll get on to predictions in just a second. We'll give a quick shout out to Mark and Super League Pod. I listened to the latest episode this morning on my way and on my way home from work. It's a very, very good one, very entertaining. So check out Super League Pod and download that on there and listen to it on Spreaker. We just alluded to the fact about predictions. The last time, I think when you were just checking on your computer, the last time we beat you was 2 years ago in 2016, which I think was that game at Weldon Road, which was one of Sam Tompkins' first games back, I think, if I remember rightly. Sam Tompkins scored. I think I remember Bateman scoring. You beat us 3 times last year, twice at the DW. The first time was comprehensive, and it was when you were flying high at the start of the season. We had perhaps a few players missing. And the last time was our last home game of the season, which pretty much ended our season. And Truman came in. I think he scored that trick against us and ended our season pretty much. So, yeah, so obviously you've got good memories of the DW at this moment in time. How do you see Friday going? Apparently you're bringing a big following down. I think I saw today that all your coaches are sold out. You're coming down as well, Rob. How do you see Friday going? And let's get a score prediction.
Well, obviously, I think Cass are going to win. I think Cass are going to win by more than 12, more than 2 clear tries. Okay. I think if it's a tight game, we might come unstuck because we've won so many tight games, and you know you've got to lose a tight one at some stage. But I've got a feeling the way we're playing, I'm assuming the pitch is still pretty solid and firm underfoot certainly compared to Cass's. I think the last 2 weeks we've had a bit of confidence. We've hardly got any injuries at all. Like I say, we've just got Eden, we've got Junior Moores that's out with a concussion. So I think if as long as we don't implode in the second half like we have been doing, and then obviously Wigan's played really well in the second half as well, haven't they, all this season? Yeah. And again, that's Mark I can thank for that start from the Super League pod. So as long as it's we don't implode in the second half, I think Cass could have a. It's never going to be comfortable, is it, the DW? But I certainly think we've got enough to put in a good performance and win. And
you reckon there's going to be 12 points in it? More than 12 points. Let's get an actual. What score do you think it's going to be? We've got Stuart's there.
Cass by 14, I'm going to say, and I'll say 24-10 or 25-10 if it's a if Gailey gets a chance for the drop goal. It won't be out wide.
I think this is what makes this a really intriguing game, because I'm confident from a Wigan point of view, and I don't think I would have been a few weeks ago, even right at the start of that season when we were playing really well. But it's this. I think the key for me is always going to be this first half battle. I think Cass, if we allow Cass to have that start that you had against Leeds, yes, we can back our second half performance. Which, as you said, we're going to score more tries than anybody in the second half. They've conceded less points than anybody in the second half. The most points we've conceded this year in a second half is 9 points, and that was St Helens game. So we've got to back ourselves on that second half performance, but we've got to turn up with the first half performance against Cass. Otherwise, I do fear that we might give ourselves too much to do. And at some point, we are going to become unstuck by relying on that second half performance. But I very rarely go into a game like this, which is a big game, two sides that are going to be there battling it out for the top 4. But I'm probably as confident as you are from a Cass point of view. I think there will be a couple of tries in it for Wigan, and I think Stuart's put on there 25-20. I haven't even thought about a score prediction. I'm asking you, and I haven't even thought about it. I'm going 18-4 for Wigan is what I'll go for, and I think. Might be buoyed by. I do think we're going to announce a couple more contracts to be signed before the Castleford game, and I think deliberately so, to try and sort of add a bit of buoyancy to the game. And I hope before the Castleford game that it's a decent, or no disrespect to Marshall or Isa, but a big player and a big contract that's announced. Maybe Gildart or Bateman, somebody like that might get announced before the game. But we shall see, Rob, on Friday night. So thanks everybody for watching, and I assume your contribution, but like I say, we'll blame Donald Trump. And I guess we possibly might speak again in June before the rearranged game, or we might just rerun the preview from last month and see if anybody notices. It might be a bit odd talking about the weather in June from the weather in March, so people might spot on that. So, Rob, thank you so much again for joining me tonight, and thank you everybody for watching, and enjoy the game on Friday.
No worries. Thank you very much.